Hello all my faithful followers and all of you other YouTube people that haven't subscribed to my channel yet, but we'll talk about that later. Like I say in most of my videos, if you leave a comment on what you want to see, I'll make a video about it. And I have a lovely person that wants to see like a comparison in between the Ford and the Ram. I think it's S&E Tate, I think was the name. So I wrote down all the things. He commented that he wanted to know, and we're going to talk about them. One of the big things I do want to point out is, let's see, like suspension is going to be a little bit different because I had aftermarket suspension on the Ram. I don't have that suspension on the Ford yet. I'm still waiting on that to show up. It is different suspension than the Ram was, but I can talk about stock versus stock, and the tires are the same, so we'll be able to talk about that. But the Ram was on 37s and it was a 17-inch wheel, so we had way more sidewall, but eventually this truck will have 18s. I'm not doing 17s on this one, but that's a whole nother video. Sorry, I'm just blabbering now. So let's get in this video and talk about what they wanted to know. All right, first thing you wanted to know was transmission, right? Obviously, in my opinion, that's probably one of the biggest changes from the Ram to the Ford. Hey, look, there's a Ram. But that 6-speed transmission that was in the Ram, everyone knows it shifts clunky, right? When I was towing heavyweight, you know, even like moderate weight, like 6,000 pounds, the transmission was good, right? It would shift good. It wasn't really searching. It wasn't clunky. But this being my daily driver, it kind of sucked because the transmission in the Dodge was terrible. And it's like, you know, stoplights coming into the city are an absolute nightmare. And then with this truck having the 10-speed, it's a night and day difference. In one of my other videos, one of the main reasons that I kind of like swayed to the Ram was because of the Cummins. I was like, okay, well, it has the inline 6, so I'll get a better fuel economy, so I'll just rock that. Then I realized that Ford had the 10-speed, so even though that this is a V8 platform instead of an inline 6, it gets better fuel economy than the Ram did. So right now, I don't know if you can see it, but we're getting 15.7 miles to the gallon. All right, so let me go ahead and reset this. Reset, and we'll see what this is calculated here before we get on the freeway. And I think like the daily drivability of the Ford is a lot better if you're not using it to tow. The Ram's still a good truck. I just think the Ram is more centered around towing, right? I mean, that's why you buy a diesel in the first place, is to tow. But I don't have enough money to have a diesel and a half-ton truck for a daily driver or just a car. But I daily drive this. And then on kind of the shitty side of things, like if you have a diesel, like a new age diesel, it's kind of crappy to do city driving between like the EGR stuff and like getting all that backed up. So that's a whole different video. But as of now, this says I'm getting 27 miles to the gallon, probably because we're coasting to a stoplight. But transmission, 100%. Love the Ford way more than the Ram. Towing wise, I haven't towed as much as I did with the Ram, but look how nice this is. Look at this truck. That's a good truck right there. All right. Anyway, the towing, this truck will tow more on paper than the Ram would, right? Just because I equipped this truck with like their high tow package. This truck has 355 gears. The Ram had 373s, but this has a 10-speed. So I don't know how that works out mathematically for ratios and their transmission and all that nonsense, but typically, you know, if you had a 373, you would have like the high tow package, and this has 355, but it still has the max tow package for a 3/4 ton truck. I would rather tow with this than the Ram. Just my opinion. But daily driving, I know that was one of the things you were asking about. Daily driving is awesome. I love that. Miles per gallon, you know, this says right now we're getting 18.9, 19. All right, so we just say like 18 miles a gallon in the city, right? If you're not driving like an asshole. And when you are driving this truck, it's really hard not to drive like an asshole because this truck is so fast, right? Let's see if we can catch up to all these people. The fun factor in this truck, look at this. Already caught up to it. So the fun factor in this truck is what's gonna mess you up with your fuel economy, because you're gonna wanna haul ass in this thing all the time because, well, the truck hauls ass. So let me get up to 65 here. All right, 65. Let's turn cruise on, set it. All right, we're cruise, set at 55. If I reset MPGs, let's see where we're at with that. So while that's calculating, let's move on to the next question you had, which was suspension. So stock to stock, I think the Ford has better suspension setup as far as like daily driving, which is crazy. I don't know what it is on the high outputs or the 3500s, but I had the basic Cummins that was a 2500, and it had springs in the back instead of, or it had coil springs in the back, and this truck has leaf springs. And typically, just from my experience, leaf springs are a lot more harsh, right? But they're also meant to tow more weight than a coil spring. But this truck rides noticeably better than a stock Ram does. If it was, you know, weighed down, the Ram road, like this thing rides, this road is so bumpy. Look, this road sucks. But anyway, the Ram drove really well when it was towing. I will give Ram that. Like when it is towing, that truck rides so smooth. This truck, I haven't towed the weight that I did in the Ram yet, so I can't really give you an example. The most I've towed in this truck so far is 8,000 pounds. And the 8,000 pounds that I did tow on this truck was a tongue pull, wasn't a gooseneck, but the tongue pull, it handled it really well. And the drivability was still there. I don't think the ride quality changed. It didn't really get any better. All right, we're at 19.9. So we're at 20 miles to the gallon at 65 miles an hour. So I did do a road trip in this thing, and I did, you know, between 75 and 85 miles an hour all the way to Nevada, and we got, my average was 20 miles to the gallon, and that was on a 600 mile trip. So 20 miles to the gallon on a 3/4 ton truck, pretty good. That's also not towing anything. Whenever I towed the 8,000 pounds, we were getting, I believe it was like 17.8 miles to the gallon. Granted, this truck is stock right now. Once we do 37s, that's not going to be a thing. But if you're comparing stock to stock, it got better fuel economy than the Ram did, for sure. The Ram, I think, was at like 19 miles to the gallon on the highway, not towing anything, and I think it dropped to 16. It dropped significantly on the Ram when you started towing. For whatever reason, maybe the 10-speed. I just like the 10-speed. That's just me. I think the 10-speed does more to this truck than most people know. I'm gonna get stuck behind this fucking semi. All right, cool. So I think we talked enough about miles to the gallon. RPMs at speed was one of the things you were curious about. So right now we're 65, slight decline going back down into the city, and we're sitting about 1500 RPM. So again, 65 mile an hour, 1500 RPM. So not completely flat, but you're going to be probably 1600 RPM whenever you get onto a flat surface. So for shits and giggles, if I have the room, let's put this to 75. I'm probably gonna get screwed by this Jeep, but so there you go, 75, and we're at like 1600 RPM, right? So it went up a little bit, not a lot. I don't think the difference between 75 and 65 is going to change anything for you as far as fuel economy goes, but let's get this back to 65. All right. But anyway, RPMs about 1500. That's about the same as the Ram was. The Ram was like 1500, 1300 in most cases. It's kind of hard for me to remember back that far because once I put 37s on it, the RPMs were obviously a little bit higher because it was like we were constantly towing like 2,000 pounds, if you will, because the tires were so much heavier than the stock tires. But, you know, besides that, I think this does better. One of the big things people talk about, one of the things you were curious about, was mirror visibility. I don't know if you meant like blind spot, like looking through the pillars right here, which people say like you can't see, and I'm like, it's fine, I can see through here just fine and see a car. People are saying you can't see through these little beams and see if there's a car there. And then I love these mirrors way more than the Ram mirrors, because like picture this mirror turned sideways is the mirror that the Ram has, and then if you flip the mirror up into a tow mirror, then it's like this. But this is nice because if you get the Lariat or higher, you get the mirrors that go all the way out, so you can push the mirror out like that and then suck the mirror back in, right? So that's super convenient. I didn't really like the mirrors on the Ram, if I'm being honest. You know, it kind of has that stigma of like the douchebag mirrors, because, you know, everybody leaves their tow mirrors out on the Ram and everyone just makes fun of them. I'm like, dude, you lost your trailer. So that was kind of annoying, because my buddies would always fuck with my truck. But, you know, friends will be friends. I don't think the mirrors were very suited for me. I don't think you could see very much out of them for towing. The mirror, like surface area on the Ford, way better compared to the Ram. Exhaust brakes, I think the exhaust brakes are the same, honestly. I don't notice any difference in the exhaust brake from the Ford to the Ram, except for the fact that the Ram is a little bit louder. If you want your truck to like sound like you have the exhaust brake on, the Ram's louder. So that's really the only thing with that. This one, you have like the different modes, so you can push exhaust brake, then you brake on, automatic, or you turn it off. So the automatic one, I kind of messed with it a little bit. It'll turn on like if you need it going downhill, but it won't be on all the time. So that's something you could fuck with. I've never really used it too much, except for if we were towing down some really steep shit, but it's generally flat where we tow out here, so not too concerned with that. The Sync 4 in this truck is way better than the U-Connect in the Ram. The U-Connect in the Ram used to piss me off so much. Like the interface over here on the screen was such a pain in my ass. So like my phone would connect to the truck and then it wouldn't play. Like I'd be able to hit the play button on the screen and it wouldn't hit play. I would have to hit the play button on my phone in order to get it to play on the stereo. And then with this truck, it's super nice because you can go straight to Android Auto. I'm assuming also Apple CarPlay. If you are an Apple person, same thing, you would have Apple CarPlay there. So that's super nice because I can go back and forth. Like I can go to audio, I get like all my FM stations, AM, satellite, Pandora if you have that app on here, and then you just go straight back to your Android Auto and you can use your phone features right here and you can listen to whatever kind of music you like. But yes, I definitely think the Sync 4 is way better than the U-Connect from the Ram. And then you're curious about the charging plate. Yes, I know one of the things, like you said, was that it would bounce around a lot in here, and you're right. So this This is the Samsung Fold 3, and I got this big old bulky case on it, so kind of a pain in the ass. It will charge through this big ass case though. There you go. Cool. So it'll charge your phone. It'll charge my wife's iPhone, and she's got a smaller case on it. But you know, this phone, this case is freaking massive, right? Like, look at this. This phone is ridiculous. But that's pretty awesome. I don't actually use this very much. I'd rather use like a cable. So I just plug in the cable, but that is there. It's not a feature that I personally use a lot, but it works. As far as like shaking, like you said, if you're on a back road or any kind of like forest road, it's probably gonna rattle out of there, rattle out of place. But I mean, I don't really think it was meant to stay in one place the whole time. So that's just kind of a flaw that they're gonna have to work on. Maybe they could have put it like right here or something, but besides that, I think we summed it all up. You were kind of curious on the lockers and stuff. I would love to give you a breakdown on lockers versus the slip differential, but I haven't used the lockers on this yet because it hasn't snowed and we haven't taken it on any crazy off-road stuff. So I'll get back to you on the lockers versus the slip, but the slip diff on the Ram was actually pretty good. I really like that. That was super nice. I've had experience with lockers on Fords before. On my dad's truck has lockers, and you know, it's kind of a pain in the ass because sometimes four-wheel drive won't work. You gotta get out, you gotta fucking lock your axle. It's a pain in the ass, but it's also very beneficial to locking the whole axle, right? So I'll get you more information on that, let you know. I think I covered everything you wanted to see, bud. I tried my best. I didn't have very much time today, I'm sorry, but I took you on a little drive. And if I didn't answer your questions the way you wanted them asked, sorry, I'm not looking at the camera here, I gotta drive. Please feel free to drop a comment again and just tell me I suck. But if you guys like the video, like it, subscribe to the channel, and I'll do a more in-depth video of like miles per gallon and comparing some of the more general stuff, and we'll make it its own video because I'm already at 16 minutes with this one. So we'll cut this video off. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.